She blushed, saying, "You're my first." The cowboy swore she'd be his last emotional Wild West story. The sun was bleeding out over Dusty Hollow when I made my break. I'd been hiding behind the swinging doors of the Lucky Dollar Saloon, counting heartbeats while Harlan Blackwood's men fanned across the street like wolves, scenting a lame calf. My stepfather, drunk, red-eyed, and waving that cursed marriage paper, bellowed my name loud enough to rattle the tin signs. "Abigail Rose Wilkins, you get back here or I'll drag you by the hair." I didn't wait for the echo. I bolted, boots skidded on sawdust, skirts hiked to my knees, and I vaulted the hitching rail straight onto Rusty's bare back. The old stallion snorted, startled, but I dug my heels and we shot past the livery before anyone could draw. Bullets whined off the water trough. One tugged the ribbon from my braid and sent it fluttering like a white flag of surrender. I refused to raise. I was 20 years old, motherless since I was 12, and tonight I was done being currency. The desert swallowed us whole. I clung to Rusty's mane, the satchel across my chest, banging against my ribs. Inside, Ma's locket, her water-stained diary, $12 in crumpled bills, and the Derringer Pa had pressed into my hand the day the fever took him. For when words fail, Abby girl, he'd rasped. Tonight, words had failed spectacularly. Wind screamed across the flats, carrying the smell of creosote and gunpowder. Behind me, Dusty Hollow's lanterns winked out one by one, as if the town itself turned its back. Good, let it. I rode until the moon climbed high and Rusty's sides heaved like bellows. Then the storm hit. Sand rose in a howling wall, blotting the stars. Grit needled my face, found every seam of my dress, worked its way into my lungs. Rusty stumbled, knees buckling. I slid off, dragged him into the lee of a boulder, and curled against his neck while the world turned to abrasive darkness. Is this what freedom costs? I asked the storm. A slow death by 1,000 cuts. The wind answered with a roar that sounded suspiciously like Harlan's laugh. Dawn found us 15 miles out. Lips cracked, canteen sloshing half empty. I collapsed in a shallow drawer ringed by Ocotillo skeletons. Rusty grazed on nothing, ears flicking at phantom sounds. I pressed Ma's locket to my mouth and tasted salt mean or the deserts. I couldn't tell. 3 more nights I rode under starlight, sleeping by day in whatever shade the land begrudged. Thirst became a living thing, gnawing my belly. Rusty's ribs showed like fence pickets. On the 4th morning, I woke to buzzards circling and knew we had maybe one more day. That was when he appeared. A lone rider topped the dune, backlit by the rising sun, hat brim throwing his face into shadow. Broad shoulders, duster flapping like raven wings, spurs chiming soft as distant bells. He sat his paint gelding easy, one hand on the reins, the other resting near a colt that looked well acquainted with trouble. I scrambled for the fingers numb. He halted 20 yards off and touched his hat. "Morning, ma'am. You look like the desert's been using you for target practice." His voice rolled over the sand like warm whiskey low, rough-edged with something that might have been amusement or pity. Blue eyes, sharp as winter sky, flicked from my cracked lips to Rusty's swaying head. I lifted the Derringer. "I'm armed, so I see." He didn't flinch. "Name's Wyatt Kane, and you'd be—" "Sarah Jones," I lied, the name tasting like dust. He studied me a long beat, then swung down. The motion was fluid, economical, no wasted grace. He unhooked a canteen, held it out, but didn't step closer. Water ain't charity. It's just water. My pride snarled, but thirst won. I took 3 steps, snatched the canteen, and drank. Cool, sweet, life itself. Rusty shoved his muzzle in when I offered, slurping noisily. Wyatt leaned against his saddle, arms folded. Your horse says you've been pushing hard. When'd you last eat? Yesterday, jerky. He tossed me a strip wrapped in oilskin. Chew, slow, stomachal cramp. I wanted to hate his calm, the way he read me like a wanted poster. Instead, I chewed, watching him watch the horizon. There's an oasis 5 miles northwest, he said. Cottonwoods, sweet water. I'm headed that way. You can follow at a distance if you're shy of company. Bandits. Apaches flash floods. He listed the dangers like a preacher reciting scenes. Then touched his hat again and mounted. I stood there. Derringer heavy in my hand, pride and terror wrestling like alley cats. Rusty nudged me, exhausted eyes pleading. Mr. Kane. I called. He reined in, glanced back. I'd be obliged. His smile was small, crooked, gone before it fully arrived. Smart choice, Sarah Jones. We rode in silence, the sun climbing like judgment. Heat shimmered off the sand. Mirages danced lakes that vanished when you blinked. Wyatt kept a steady pace, glancing back now and then to be sure. I followed. Mid-afternoon, the canyon narrowed. Red walls rose on either side, swallowing sound. That's when the bandits hit. 6 of them erupted from the rocks-ragged, sunburned, rifles barking. Bullets whined off stone. Rusty reared. I clung to the saddle-horn heart in my throat. Wyatt's Colts cleared leather in a blur. The first outlaw spun, clutching his shoulder. The second took a round center mass and folded like a broken puppet. Wyatt's paint danced sideways, hooves striking sparks as he fired left-handed, dropped another. Stay down, darlin', he shouted, voice cutting through the chaos. I ducked behind a boulder, Derringer trembling. One bandit swung toward me, yellow teeth bet. I squeezed the trigger. The little gun bucked. The man yelped, clutched his thigh, and toppled. Wyatt finished the last 2 with shots so precise they seemed rehearsed. Smoke hung thick. The canyon stank of powder and blood. He reloaded without looking, eyes scanning the rocks. You hit. I shook my head, throat raw. He holstered one Colt, offered a hand. Calluses rough as bark, grip steady as bedrock. For a heartbeat we stood there, his pulse against my wrist. The desert holding its breath. You shoot straight for a seamstress, he said. I'm not. I stopped. Lies were piling up like driftwood. He released me, swung up. Oasis ain't far. Let's move before their friends show. We rode out of the canyon single file, the dead behind us like a warning. The oasis lay in a green bowl. Cottonwoods whispering over a spring-fed pool. Rusty plunged in to his knees, drinking deep. I knelt, splashed my face, the coolness shocking against sunburned skin. Wyatt filled canteens, then sat on a fallen log, cleaning his Colts with a rag. Sunlight slanted through leaves, painting gold on the water. I watched him, questions crowding my tongue. Why help a stranger? He didn't look up. Seen too many folks die slow out here. Figured I'd even the odds. Simple as that. No sermon, no claim. Just fact. Night fell soft. We built a small fire, shared coffee thick as mud. Stars wheeled overhead, bright enough to read by, I found myself talking about Ma's garden, how she sang hymns while kneading bread, about Pa's laugh that could rattle windows, about dreams of California oranges and ocean salt. Words spilled like water from a cracked dam. Wyatt listened, whittling a mesquite stick into nothing. When I ran dry, he spoke of Texas plains, of brothers lost to blue and grey coats, of a homestead burned by raiders who wore badges. His voice stayed level, but pain flickered in his eyes like heat lightning. Land don't care who owns the deed, he said, only who's willing to bleed for it. I hugged my knees, the fire popping between us. I was sold, Wyatt, like a heifer at auction. My stepfather signed me away for whiskey and cards. His jaw tightened. No paper owns a soul. The words settled warm in my chest, thawing something frozen since Ma's grave. Later, when the fire burned low, he showed me how to ease the reins so Rusty wouldn't tire. His hands over mine rough, warm scent sparks up my arms. You've got fire, Sarah, he murmured. Don't let the world snuff it. I met his eyes, heart stuttering. For the first time since Pa died, I felt seen. Not as orphan, not as Det, but as Abigail. We broke camp at dawn, riding northwest. Clouds stacked on the horizon, bruised purple. By noon the sky cracked open. Rain lashed sideways, turning dust to mud. A dry wash became a roaring river in minutes. Rusty slipped. I screamed as the current yanked us sideways. Wyatt's lasso snaked out, looped my waist. He hauled me across his saddlebow, paint gelding lunging for high ground. Water roared below, hungry, soaked to the bone. We clung together on a sandstone ledge. His arms around me were the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. You're shaking, he said against my hair. Cold, I lied. He rubbed my arms, breath warm on my neck. The storm passed as sudden as it came, leaving steam rising from the rocks. That night, under cleared stars, I told him my real name, Abigail Rose Wilkins, and I'm running from Harlan Blackwood. His eyes darkened. Blackwood's got a reputation meaner than a gut-shot coyote, but he don't own the horizon. I believed him. God help me, I did. We rode on, the bond between us growing roots in desert soil. Little did I know the real storms were gathering betrayal bullets, and a reckoning that would test whether two broken souls could forge something unbreakable, but that's a tale for the trail ahead.